Hey everyone, this is Curb, and I bring you another standard match. This time on the left, we do have Matthew playing his Hexaorb deck. He is our local Hexaorb main, so we're finally getting to see that deck on this channel. And on the right, we do have Alexis once again playing his Nirvana Jheva deck. So it looks like Jheva is going to be going first, just running into that Reno, and then Matthew's going to take it. And he's just going to be riding into that Blaster Javelin, which is honestly, at this point in time, the normal ride line for Hexaorb, where you go the Blaster Dark Engine. We're going to see that first attack being hit with a 15k guard, and we are going to hit a critical trigger. So it is pretty good that we actually guarded that first attack, because that prevents us from taking just like 2 free damage. Anyways, going back to Alexis, we are going to be calling out that grade 2 Prayer Dragon that I'm not going to bother learning the name of, boosting it with the Trickster that we call off the Reno skill. It looks like that damage is going to be checked, and it's going to be a Persona Ride, which is kind of devastating for the Hexaorb, because Hexaorb is one of those decks. It's a deck from BT1, and it is pretty reliant on that Persona Ride. So if you don't hit it, a lot of the times your turns are so much weaker than they honestly could be. Anyways, going back to Hexaorb, we're going to be riding into that Blaster Dark, going to be using skill, unfortunately calling off a critical trigger, and then just retiring it, popping that Prayer Dragon, going to be swinging with the Twin Drive, hitting a heal trigger and a draw trigger, so very nice, healing down to 0 and drawing an extra card. So this last turn went actually pretty well. So I know I've talked about the Blaster Javelin versus the Marin ride line. I talked to Matthew a little bit after the game and questioned why he was doing the Blaster Javelin. He mentioned that it's just the fact that doing the Marin play takes 1 card out of Soul, which, to be honest, is pretty true. And he would rather have that card in Soul, because, in case you don't know, Hexaorb is a deck that uses a ton of resources, and it just needs so much CB, it needs so much soul, that like even that 1 soul that you lose off the ride line could honestly just like be the difference between activating skill and not. Anyways, getting back into the match, we are going to be seeing the crossover dress into the Veils Arena over the Brahmada, actually using the skill to Karen Blast 1 and draw the 2 pitch 1, meaning we aren't going to be able to restand it, so we are just going to be swinging with the Vanguard first. Can be hit with a 15k guard, hitting a heal trigger, healing down, and looks like we're going to put the power on the Vanguard, and second check is going to be a heal trigger. So that's actually going to be enough to pass through. Of course, we are going to get a critical trigger on the defensive, which is going to be preventing the Veils Arena, who's only going to be at 15 this time, from actually hitting that Blaster Dark. So finally riding into that Hexaorb. Unfortunately, we do only have the 1 CB. All right, so it looks like we are actually going to be calling out that grade 1, which actually is a Persona Ride Searcher for CB1, which is just kind of amazing to think about. There's so many decks that would, like, their power level would increase so much if they had like a Persona Ride Searcher, like a direct Persona Ride Searcher. But Hexaorb has one, and honestly, like it's just not enough to like make Hexaorb actually playable. The unfortunate thing about actually healing down, or just like not even taking any damage, is that we are having to do this entire turn on 1 CB. We're going to be seeing that grade 2 come on down, checking the top 2 cards of the deck. You put them on the top in any order, and then you soul charge 1. And then we are going to be seeing that promo for Hexaorb, which is actually the counter charger, which means that it's possible to do some things. If we get a trigger here, we can actually stack it on that thing, and then soul blast 2 and counter charge to get back our counter blast that we used to search out the Persona Ride. But unfortunately, we see double blanks, meaning that not only do we not get that counter charge off, we don't actually get a swing with either of these 2 rear guards. If we had gotten even 1 trigger, we could have put the trigger effect onto one of them, and then using Hexaorb skill, since you actually check the trigger unit, you can actually give another 10k to another unit. So that would have pumped up both those grade 2s to 2,000, or 20,000, excuse me, and they would have actually been able to hit. But unfortunately, we saw complete blanks, and so we get nothing. Anyways, we are going to see, going back to Nirvana, him calling out another Brahmada, crossover addressing with another Trickstar, called from hand. Just swinging with the Brahmada, which now that the Vanguard is at grade 3, is actually going to be hitting for clean 33. And we're just going to be doing some cleanup after that hit, Soul Blasting 1, and letting us retire that Countercharger. So committing that to board might have been a little bit of a mistake. I mean, you did have to kind of go on the offensive. Your opponent was at 0, but it really did not pay off. But swinging that Veil is going to be intercepting with the other grade 2. It's a on-play skill, so it doesn't even really matter. Swinging the Veilsfarina again, which is another 33, and in this position, you really do need that damage. You need Counterblast. Hexaorb just needs so much Counterblast in order to actually function. So it's kind of just like makes sense to just take the biggest swing, even though you are just like completely losing your board. And I guess there is a upside that grade 1 had already used its skill, so now you can call something else to replace it. But at the same time, you just when you're playing Hexaorb, you can't really afford to be minusing this much. But we are going to be seeing another one of those grade 2s coming out, checking top 2, rearrange them in any order, and then actually just soul charging. We're going to see this other sorceress. I'm sorry, I don't know all their sorceress names. You get a Counterblast 1, check top 2. You can put 2 of them into your hand, but if you put 2 of them, you have to choose a card from hand and put it on the bottom. We are going to see him just Matthew just putting one of the cards into his hand, so the other one gets left on top of the deck. Calling out the Restander, which if you hit a trigger, allows you to Counterblast 1, retire, and restand one of your rear guards. But unfortunately, we do only have that one CB left, so we can't really use the Hexaorb skill to stack something and get that triple drive. So we kind of have to, it looks like we're just going to commit that one CB to the restand. Probably going to doing that because we saw the top card. Hopefully it's a trigger so that we can actually get some power. We are going to see it actually is a trigger, a critical trigger. So it is going to be giving a 10k to the grade 2 sorcerers, and then Hexaorb skill is going to be giving another 10k to the rear guard that just swung. Unfortunately hitting into a defensive, which is going to be really unfortunate. I mean, we are going to get that restand off, but the other grade 2 is hitting for 30, so it does actually still hit, but without the defenses, this would have been such a much nicer number. We're just going to be guarding the 15. This thing's going to be swinging for 23, 35, because it gets an extra 5k whenever it attacks a Vanguard. So it is going to be swinging. That's just going to be hit with a 30k guard for 43. So we did manage to do some things during the Hexaorb turn, but at the same time, it's just like we pinged for 2 damage, retired one of the rear guards. Not bad, but you know, when a lot of the other decks are doing just so much more, I don't think it's enough at this point in the meta. But anyways, going back to Jheva, we are going to be seeing this turn start off with a Persona Ride, discarding card, calling back that Gallandite, as well as a Trickstar, crossover dressing into that Veilsfarina, adding back a Garo, swinging the Veilsfarina, this time for a 43, which is just such a big number, and the fact that we weren't able to answer it last turn just like makes this so much worse. But we do fortunately get a nice defensive draw trigger. We lose the other unit, which is a little unfortunate because it's a 15k attacker, but at the same time it did use its on play, so you can just call something else there, which is a small upside, I suppose. Gonna be swinging the Vanguard for a 23. Just gonna be guarding that with the over trigger, just like making sure that nothing can really pass through. Hitting a draw trigger there, and then the Veilsfarina is going to be swinging for, let's see, that would be 20 because we went over the Gallandite, 30 with the Persona Ride, and I believe we put the trigger power on there, so that is a 40. So we are going to be needing a 20k shield in order to guard this, because we did get that defensive. So we just need 20 more in order to get to that 43. Looks like we're actually going to be over guarding here for 53, which is interesting because I think we could have just guarded with one of those and intercepted instead for a 43, if I'm not mistaken, because that Veilsfarina was, let's see, it's 20, 30 with the Persona Ride. Yeah, it was just 40, so we kind of just over guarded there. But now we're gonna be taking this Braum, this Braum. Was I calling it Garo before? I don't know, but the Braum, the one that's swinging with the 43. Anyways, gonna be riding into another Hexaorb, so a nice Persona Ride. So definitely things are going the way you want. And this time you do actually have 2 CB to play around with. So we are going to be seeing 1 CB committed to that Sorceress. Again, actually adding both cards and then deciding what to put on the bottom of the deck. And looks like, I think that was another copy of her. And I think we have a 3rd copy in hand, which is, I believe, all 4 of them out, which is not bad because they are 15k attackers. They'll actually hit the Vanguard unboosted, as we are going to see another one coming on down. Using the Hexaorb skill, Counterblasting 1, Soul Blasting 1, putting a critical trigger on top of the deck. So we are just guaranteeing that that critical trigger, as well as the skill. Obviously going to be swinging the Vanguard first because we don't have enough CB to do the restand. Obviously just checking that critical trigger, 2nd check, 3rd check. Unfortunately not hitting anything else outside of that 1 critical trigger. And the whole attack was just PG'd. Looks like we're putting all the effects onto that rightmost Sorceress. But honestly, this game is just not going Hexaorb's way. For a deck that needs to be hitting a lot of triggers, we're just not seeing that coming out this game. Going to be swinging for 25. It is just going to be balked for a 28 with a 15k guard. And then this other swing is going to be 35, 45 with the Persona Ride. So pretty big number, 2 crit. It isn't lethal, which is pretty unfortunate. So there's no real pressure to guard this, especially if you have with your board set up, you kind of have like the game set in your next turn. So taking it wouldn't be the worst, but at the same time, you still do have that 1 counterblast. And with your current board setup, you can really just get away with that 1 CB, because we are going to be seeing the Braum swinging in for another 33. Just having another thing that is really hurting Hexaorb is that the inability to have removal. And I think removal is just like honestly just really good this meta. So not being able to get rid of that Braum Varina, just having it swing every single turn for these massive numbers and take out your entire board. We are going to be seeing it guarded for that's 23, and then that is a 15k guard because it gets plus 10k if you have a Sorceress Vanguard. So that is going to be a 38 guarding that Braum Varina. Next up, Vanguard is going to be swinging, re-standing that Braum Varina, and that's just been a thorn in Hexaorb's side this entire time. Guarding for a 15k, which is just 2 to pass, giving all the effects to that Veil's Varina. Swing for another 30, which honestly, we're running pretty low on cards in hand. So even if we manage to survive this turn, our options for what we can do next turn are just getting really limited. Going to be guarding with that Heal Guardian, the one that prevents critical triggers. PGing the 2nd Braum attack. Choosing what to discard. We have another Restander as well as a PG, but looks like we're going to opt to just discard the PG. Unfortunately, not drawing into Persona Ride, just calling 2 grade 1s, swing with the Vanguard, which is just not great. But if we do see a critical trigger off here, we will be able to hit with those other 2 grade 1s. But unfortunately, once again, we just see completely dry drive checks from the Hexaorb. So it's just not looking good, because Hexaorb can definitely make really nice numbers if it hits those triggers. But we just didn't see it this game. Anyways, that's going to be the end of the match. I hope you guys enjoyed. Go ahead and do all those YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.